Morning Stoic habits to discipline your mind. Something is happening to you right now. And most people will never realize it until it is too late. Every single morning you wake up, there is a war being fought. Not in the streets. Not in some distant land. But inside your own mind. And the terrifying truth? Most people have already lost it before they even get out of bed. You open your eyes. And within seconds, the noise begins. The notifications. The anxiety. The endless list of things demanding your attention. Before you have even stood up, your mind has been hijacked. Stolen from you. And you didn't even feel it happen. But what if I told you that thousands of years ago, a group of men discovered a solution to exactly this problem? Men who faced war, poverty, betrayal, the death of their children, the collapse of empires. And yet woke up every single morning completely in control of their minds. They were called Stoics. And today, right now, you are going to learn what they knew. These are not motivational quotes. This is not positive thinking. What you are about to hear is a morning system, a daily architecture for the mind, that will fundamentally change how you think, how you act, and who you become. Stay with me. Because by the time this is over, your mornings will never be the same again. Welcome back to Stoic Mindset, the channel dedicated to building an unshakable mind in a world designed to break you. If you are new here, welcome. You found this place for a reason. And before we go any further, if what you hear today speaks to something deep inside you, something that feels like it has been sleeping, hit that subscribe button. Because what we build here, we build together, one morning at a time. Now, let us begin. Habit 1, wake before the world. The Stoics believe that how you begin a thing determines the entire character of that thing. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, began each morning with a single, honest confrontation. Before the servants arrived. Before the advisors knocked on his door. Before the empire demanded anything from him. He sat with himself. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work, as a human being. What do I have to complain of, if I'm going to do what I was born for?" The first habit is this: wake before the world wakes. Not to be productive in the conventional sense. Not to check your phone. Not to start a to-do list. But to claim the first hour of the day as sacred territory that belongs to no one but you. When you wake with the world, you are reactive from the first breath. The world sets your tone. The algorithm decides your mood. The news shapes your anxiety. You have already surrendered your mind before you have used it. But when you wake before the world, even 30 minutes earlier, something extraordinary happens. Silence becomes your teacher. Stillness becomes your strength. In that quiet space, you are not a job title. You are not a collection of obligations. You are simply a mind, clear and awake, with the rare chance to choose who you will be today. The discipline here is not waking up early. The discipline is what you protect that time from. No phone. No social media. No news. Not yet. The first moments of your mind each day are the most valuable real estate you own. Guard them ruthlessly. Habit 2, the morning reflection. Before Marcus Aurelius rose from his bed, before he issued a single command, he did something most people in power never do. He examined himself. The Stoics called this the morning reflection, and it was not optional. It was not something you did when you had time. It was the foundation everything else was built upon. Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and became one of the greatest philosophers who ever lived, taught that the only true starting point for a disciplined life is this: know what is yours, and know what is not. The morning reflection is a daily reckoning with that truth. Here is how you do it. Sit in silence. Take a breath. And ask yourself 3 questions. What do I control today? Only your thoughts. Your choices. Your effort. Your response to what happens. Nothing else. What am I likely to face today that will test me? Not to dread it, but to prepare for it honestly. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of hardship. Not pessimism. Preparation. Who do I want to be when those moments arrive? Not what you want to achieve. Not what you want to have. But who you want to be, in character, in conduct, in the quality of your presence. These 3 questions, asked sincerely, take no more than 10 minutes. But the man or woman who asks them every single morning for a year becomes someone unrecognizable from who they were before. Write your answers. A journal is not a diary. It is a training ground for the mind. Habit 3, voluntary discomfort. Here is where most people leave. Not because what comes next is impossible, but because it is uncomfortable. And we have built a civilization specifically designed to help you avoid discomfort at all costs. But the Stoics knew something our modern world has forgotten. Comfort is not safety. Comfort is atrophy. Seneca wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, is this the condition that I feared?" The 3rd morning habit is voluntary discomfort. And it is perhaps the most powerful of all. Every single morning, before the day asks anything of you, you choose something hard. It might be a cold shower. Not because cold water has magical properties, but because every morning you stand at the edge of that discomfort and you choose to step into it anyway, you are training something far more important than your body. You are training your relationship with difficulty. You are learning, in your cells, not just your mind, that discomfort does not destroy you. That you can walk toward the thing that makes you flinch. That your fear of something is almost always larger than the thing itself. It might be a hard workout. An early run in cold weather. Fasting until noon. Sitting in silence when your mind desperately wants distraction. The specific form matters less than the principle. Every morning, choose something your soft self would refuse. And then do it anyway. Over time, this changes your baseline. Things that would once derail your entire day, a criticism, a failure, an unexpected hardship, begin to feel small. Because you have been training in voluntary storms every single morning. Your capacity for difficulty expands. And with it, your capacity for greatness. Habit 4, read the ancient minds. There is a strange and beautiful thing that happens when you read the words of a man who died 2,000 years ago and realize he is describing exactly what you felt yesterday. The Stoics were not abstract theorists. They were practitioners. They wrote in the trenches of real life, in exile, in grief, in war, in power, in slavery. And what they left behind is not philosophy in the academic sense. It is field-tested wisdom from people who were tested by everything. The 4th morning habit is to read the Stoics, even just 5 or 10 pages, before the noise of the modern world enters your mind. Not to collect information. Not to appear intellectual. But to have your thinking corrected and clarified by minds far greater than the algorithm that is currently trying to shape yours. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations was never meant to be published. It was a private journal, a man talking to himself, reminding himself, correcting himself. When you read it in the morning, you are sitting beside him. You are hearing the inner voice of someone who had every temptation to be a tyrant, and chose every day to be a philosopher instead. Seneca's letters will make you feel that a deeply wise friend is writing directly to you across 2 millennia of silence. Epictetus will dismantle every excuse you have ever made for your own weakness, and do it with such precision and compassion that you will thank him for it. 10 minutes a day with these minds will, over the course of a year, make you a fundamentally different thinker. The quality of your thoughts will change. The questions you ask yourself will deepen. Your responses to difficulty will slow and sharpen. And all of that begins in the quiet of a morning, before the world gets its hands on you. Habit 5, single-pointed intention. The modern morning looks like this: wake up. Check your phone. Scroll for 20 minutes. Feel vaguely anxious about everything and certain about nothing. Open your laptop. React. 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 You spend the entire day being pulled in 17 directions, arriving at the evening exhausted, and somehow, the things that matter most remain untouched. The Stoics had a word for this kind of scattered life, akrasia, weakness of will. Acting against your own better judgment. Knowing what matters and doing everything else instead. The fifth morning habit is the antidote, single-pointed intention. Before you touch your phone. Before you open your laptop. Before you speak a single word to another person, you write down one thing. Not 10 things. Not a full to-do list. One thing. The one thing that, if you accomplish it today, will mean the day was not wasted. Marcus Aurelius called this the summum bonum, the highest good of the day. The thing most aligned with your purpose and your values. The action that your best self would choose. Everything else in your day, the meetings, the errands, the obligations, those are logistics. They will happen. But this one thing is the soul of the day. This is the thing that belongs to your growth, your mission, your becoming. When you begin each morning with this single intention, you stop being a cork floating on the ocean of other people's priorities. You become a ship with a heading. And a ship with a heading, even in a storm, moves forward. Habit 6, the body as a tool. The Stoics were not only philosophers of the mind. They were deeply practical people who understood something that modern wellness culture has managed to both overcomplicate and undervalue. Your body is the vehicle of your philosophy. You cannot think clearly in a body you have neglected. You cannot endure difficulty with a frame that has been softened by years of avoidance. You cannot be fully present in a life when your physical existence is a source of chronic low-grade suffering. Musonius Rufus, one of the great Stoic teachers, and a man who was exiled twice and endured conditions most of us would not survive, said that the philosopher must train the body alongside the mind. Not for vanity. Not for performance. But because physical hardship, embraced voluntarily, builds the kind of character that no lecture can produce. The sixth morning habit is to move. Deliberately. Hard. Walk. Run. Lift. Do something that demands your body show up. And as you do it, and this is what separates Stoic physical training from ordinary exercise, practice the philosophy simultaneously. When your body says stop, ask, is this a genuine limit, or the first whisper of comfort-seeking retreat? When the discomfort rises, observe it without immediately obeying it. Let it teach you something about the distance between sensation and suffering. Your body, trained this way, becomes a daily proof of concept. I have faced difficulty today. I did not turn from it. I am capable of more than I thought yesterday. Carry that proof with you into every meeting, every challenge, every moment that asks you to be more than average. Habit 7, gratitude without sentimentality. Gratitude has become a word so overused that it has nearly lost its power. Gratitude journals. Gratitude apps. Gratitude as a performance for social media. The Stoics practiced something different. Something sharper. They called it a more fatty love of fate. Not passive acceptance. Not toxic positivity. But a clear-eyed, even fierce recognition that everything in your life, every hardship, every loss, every ordinary Tuesday morning, is the exact raw material from which your character is being forged. Marcus Aurelius did not practice gratitude by listing things he was happy about. He practiced it by looking at what life had given him and choosing to see it as exactly what he needed. The seventh morning habit is a single moment of true gratitude. Not for the comfortable things. For the whole of it. Sit for 60 seconds. Breathe. And acknowledge this. You are alive. You have a mind capable of choosing who you are. You have this morning, which no one is promised. Every challenge you are facing right now is proof that you are alive and engaged with something real. Every difficulty is a teacher who did not have to show up. The Stoics believed that the man who can be grateful, genuinely grateful, not performatively, for the full complexity of his life, without flinching from its darkness, is a man who cannot be broken. Because he has chosen to need nothing to be different than it is, in order to begin. Habit 8, Silence and the Examined Thought. We live in an age of noise. Not merely external noise, though that is remarkable in its own right. But internal noise. The constant commentary. The running argument. The endless stream of thought that never pauses long enough for you to see it clearly. The Stoics were unusual among ancient philosophers in their insistence on examining not just what you think, but how you think. The mechanisms of your own cognition. Epictetus taught that all suffering comes not from events, but from judgments about events. The thing itself is neutral. The meaning you assign to it, that is where your freedom either lives or dies. But you can only examine your judgments if you have practiced seeing them. And you can only practice seeing them in silence. The 8th morning habit is 10 minutes of intentional silence. Not sleep. Not passive rest. Deliberate, attentive quiet. Sit with your thoughts. Watch them arise. And instead of being carried by them, ask, is this thought true? Is it useful? Is it mine, or did I absorb it from someone else's fear? The Stoics called this prosoche, attention to oneself. It was considered the cornerstone of the entire practice. And in an era when the average person checks their phone within 60 seconds of waking, giving yourself 10 minutes of honest silence is not a small act. It is a revolutionary one. In that silence, you will hear the voice that the noise was designed to drown out. Your own. Habit 9, Memento Mori, remember that you will die. Stay with me here. Every morning, the Stoics reminded themselves of one thing that our culture has decided is too uncomfortable to mention at breakfast. You will die. Not as a dark or hopeless thought, but as the most clarifying truth available to a human mind. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day." The 9th morning habit, and perhaps the most confrontational, is a brief, honest acknowledgement of your mortality. Not to induce fear. To induce clarity. When you hold the fact of your death in your mind for just 1 minute each morning, the trivial things fall away with remarkable speed. The petty argument loses its gravity. The obsession with what someone thinks of you weakens. The endless postponement of the things that truly matter becomes suddenly, obviously absurd. You have a finite number of mornings. You do not know the count. This morning is one of them. What does a person who knows that, who really knows it, not as a vague background fact but as a present reality, choose to do with this day? That question, asked sincerely, is worth more than most advice you will ever receive. Memento Mori. Not a shadow over your morning. A light. Habit 10, Set your character for the day. We arrive at the final habit. And in many ways, it is the one that contains all the others. Every morning, after the reflection, after the movement, after the reading and the silence and the confrontation with mortality, the Stoics did one last thing. They decided. Not what they would accomplish. Not what they hoped would happen. But who they would be. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself repeatedly across the pages of the Meditations, not as a philosopher performing wisdom, but as a man trying to hold himself to a standard. He named the virtues he was committed to that day: justice, courage, temperance, wisdom. He reminded himself what a good man does. And then he walked into the empire. The 10th morning habit is this: name your character for the day. Before you step out into the world, before the first email, the first conversation, the first demand, take 60 seconds and declare, silently or aloud, who you are going to be. Not "I hope to be patient today." But "I am a patient person. I demonstrate that today." Not "I'll try not to lose my temper." But "I am someone who responds with clarity instead of reaction." I prove that today. The Stoics understood something about identity that psychology is only now catching up to. We do not think our way into new behavior. We behave our way into new thinking. And the declaration of identity, stated with certainty, in the present tense, every single morning, is the first behavior. You are not becoming who you want to be. You are being that person now. In this moment. In the way you choose to begin. 10 habits. Thousands of years of wisdom. One morning. You do not need to do all of them tomorrow. You do not need to do them perfectly. The Stoics were not perfectionists, they were practitioners. They fell short, they corrected, they began again. What matters is the beginning. So start with one. Maybe it is the silence. Maybe it is the single intention. Maybe it is waking 20 minutes earlier and sitting with the meditations and a cup of something warm, before the world decides who you are going to be today. And if what you heard here today planted something, a question, a discomfort, a recognition of something you already knew but had forgotten, then let this be the beginning of something. The discipline you build in your mornings will not stay in your mornings. It will travel with you. Into your work. Into your relationships. Into the moments that define you when no one is watching. That is the promise of the Stoic practice. Not a perfect life. A life fully lived, fully owned, and fully yours. If this spoke to you, if you watched this far and something in you shifted, I want to ask you to do one thing. Subscribe to this channel. Not because of an algorithm. Not for a number. But because what we are building here, together, is a community of people who have decided to stop being passive passengers in their own lives. Every week, we go deeper. We explore more of the ancient wisdom that the modern world forgot. We build the kind of mind that does not break when life pushes back. If that is the life you are choosing, and I believe it is, or you would not still be here, then subscribe. Hit the bell. Leave a comment below telling me which of these habits you are starting with tomorrow morning. I read every one. Until next time, guard your mornings, discipline your mind, and live as though it matters. Because it does.